Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today in War Thunder it's time to go over some of the changelogs over the last week or so, but before we do, there are two announcements I'd like to make. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody who was involved in the custom battles the last few weeks. It went pretty smoothly, to be quite honest, and now I just have to get the footage for one of them out of the four, so therefore, as I said, thank you very much for being involved. On top of this as well, we do have a new shirt in the merchandise store on the tech store, and there will be a link in a pinned comment so you can check it out. This is, of course, the Soaring Swordfish, a wonderful design made by one of our artists that we work with over on the Tech Hub. If you want more information about any of the merchandise that we have available on Teespring or anywhere else, please contact Nathan Clawfish on the Tech Hub. And also, if you are a graphic artist or if you're a designer or just general artist and want to work with us, make sure to either hit me up or hit Nathan Clawfish up so we can, get your ideas out there while also making sure that you are compensated. So let's get forward and start actually reading through these changelogs, discussing them, and doing all those wonderful things. So the first one is from the 18th of September. This is for aircraft of rank 7.7 and higher. Possible battle scenarios of Axis against Axis or Allies against Allies in RB have been replaced by scenarios of all against all. This will allow us to get statistics on the efficiency on the aircraft of top ranks for the possibility of adjusting new options and scenarios between rivals of different countries. Now, to be quite honest, over the last few years ago, pretty much since update 1.77, one of the issues I've been thinking about, because obviously with 1.77 we got stuff like the Abrams, with earlier this year we got stuff like the F-100, it was very obvious that we were pushing forward towards the modern day for aircraft. Now with tanks, if you look at each nation, you can generally at least have some form of 1980s or 1990s vehicle that is comparable, which is generally has some form of hidden information in it, therefore you can balance it by that. The problem is when it comes to aircraft, this isn't really the case. What you have is two very dominant nations. You have the Soviet Union, which of course is Russia today, and then you have America. And both of these, throughout the Cold War, really pushed each other hard to produce new technology, and which was given to countries after they went on to the next step. That is why Germany has stuff like the Canadair Sabre, which is seen as better than the American Sabres, because of the fact that while the time the Germans were using stuff like the Canadair Sabre, the Americans had already moved on to the F-100. So you have these problems where you have two massive, powerful nations, and then you have everybody else who is trying to catch up, at least in terms of vehicles. And my thoughts in my head was always, how the hell are you going to balance this without making every other nation kind of worthless apart from those two? And there are two ways of doing it. You either give each nation the same vehicles across the board, or what you do is you make it so it's an all versus all scenario, where basically everybody fights everyone and you don't have to worry about matchmaking. Well, it looks like, at least for now, we're going for the second option, and that means that issues such as, well, how is the Phantom going to be balanced? Well, they can now be countered by, well, it just fights itself, which, to be honest, I personally disagree with. I understand the idea of balance when it comes to, if I have a tiger facing another tiger, the only real difference between us is if one is spaded or if one is half modified and also cruise skills, but it's going to be a pretty fair fight. If it's something which is like a Phantom 2 versus something like an F-30 or something like a Hunter F-1 or something like that, then yes, it's not going to be as balanced. Therefore, we have to put them up against each other. So hopefully with this change, we'll see either a push towards one way or another, whether it's going to be, working out what nations should fight each other, what nations should be on each side. Because at least for me, when I look at top tier is much less about historical matchups. Now it is much more about just general balance, because that's, at least from talking to a lot of people, is what many would prefer. When it comes to lower tiers, you have enough people playing different nations, and also each nations have different characteristics to be able to have different playstyles but top tier, it's definitely not as, let's call it, diverse. The next point is Enduring Confrontation, the mission La Manche, is now available for creating game sessions in the SB mode. Try out new scenarios, naval convoy, port attack, and naval bombers, where you will need to destroy or protect AI-controlled fleets and other interesting mission tasks. For more information, see the Enduring Confrontation portion in the major update patch notes. So when I first read this, I thought it was the naval Enduring Confrontation, but no, we got that test last weekend. I thought it was very good. I enjoyed it a lot. I saw a lot of people. The major complaint was that, if people started, torpedoing the spawn, then it was very hard to get out of it. And my response to that is spawn somewhere else. It's very hard to torpedo all of the spawns, especially in a coordinated way. So therefore, there are ways around this issue. On top of this as well, it wasn't as big ship dominated as I thought it would be, but I think that was because of a problem with the aircraft. The fact that you could reload in the air with aircraft, I don't think was a good idea. I think it would have been much better if the aircraft themselves were able to, they had to reload on the airfield instead of just having these massive behemoths of machines, fly at very high altitudes and just keep dropping stuff on the respawn points. But overall, positive, enjoyed it a lot. These missions here, or La Manche mission, it's basically talking about an Enduring Confrontation mission which is based around Boulogne-sur-Mer, and it is very much naval orientated. It has AI destroyers at least running around. I got annihilated in a when I was in an LA-174 by a Clemson. So it was a lot of fun to actually try it out. I still want to see the longevity of certain mission objectives, because obviously Boulogne-sur-Mer is very large. I want to see how each battle, actually works. I need to test it more, but so far it is looking very positive. The next set of updates is for update 1.91.0.75. And this starts with a bug related to the controller synchronization of vehicles, where twitching could be observed with some aircraft when maneuvering at high speeds, 1,000 kilometers an hour and higher, has been fixed. So that's pretty much talking about the little bug you would get when you reached about Mach 0.97, where it would try and force you into the ground. It reminded me of a bug about 4 or 5 years ago, where you would just get hit by packet loss, and it would just force you into the ground, and there was nothing you could do about it. But this time, there was no packet loss. It was as if it was just doing it by itself. So I'm glad that has been fixed. Temporary freezes, which occur in game sessions after long flights with helicopters, have been fixed. That is a major change. Very, very good that that's been changed. Then we have the sound of shooting from first-person view. Naval binoculars has been corrected. Not exactly sure what was wrong with this, but it's good that it's been fixed. Sounds that occur when a player's own vehicle is struck in naval or ground battles are now more pronounced. This will mean that we'll be able to see where we're being shot from, which is incredibly important. One of the problems with the first few days of the audio, especially in ground forces, very hard to tell where I was getting shot from. The only way I was really able to was the smoke plume, which came out of course, barrels and stuff like that. So I'm happy that that's been fixed. I mean, the audio now, after, making the big hoorah about this new sound engine, it sounds very similar to what we had previously. On the ground, I should say. In the air, it does sound completely different. Firing attack sounds of all non-automatic cannons for ground vehicles have been intensified, so we're going to hear a lot more bang bang. A bug where, in some cases, the firing sounds of allies' enemies might not have played has been fixed. That's lovely. The automatic purchasing of torpedoes in the default weaponry setup for all ships has been fixed. Important, if the torpedoes have been purchased earlier manually and then removed from the weaponry setup, they will not be automatically replenished in the additional weaponry slot. So you're going to have to make sure to keep on top of your torpedo buying, just like you have to keep on top of everything else. Personally, what I do is just do auto-purchase munitions, but you should not auto-purchase repairs. The way it works in game is you have a button which auto-purchases your repairs. You can see it if you open a tag tree. It will be there, I believe, in the bottom right or maybe the bottom left. And if you have it checked, it will auto-repair repair your vehicles straight after a battle. Now, it's much better to turn that off, because even if you repair your vehicles a few seconds later than what you were going to repair them automatically, you are going to save a little bit of silver lions. And also it means that if you finish a battle and you're done for the night, you don't have to repair those vehicles straight away, meaning that you're going to save yourself some silver lions. And maybe if you're going to change nation, once again, you're going to save yourself silver lions. So turn that off and only repair the vehicles that you're using at that time, because every vehicle in game has a timer connected to it, and that timer will actually give you a free repair if it goes out for your vehicle. So, make sure to do that just to save yourself some silver lions. The designation, or lack thereof, for some capture zones in ground battles has been fixed. I'm kind of disappointed by that. Would have much preferred it to be a case where some maps, maybe at even high tiers, some maps you didn't see the circle. The reason for this is, first of all, so people would have to learn where the circle is a little bit more, and also it would mean that, as a general rule, you would have a lot more of a free sense of where the capture zone is, instead of a very rigid circle which people can kind of abuse in a way by sitting their vehicle in specific places. I'd rather they remove them, at least from realistic, because it doesn't really make a lot of sense to have this massive circle on the ground. And also I think it adds a little bit of game knowledge to the game, which is always important. Giving people an advantage because they either understand the game or know different things about the game is a nice feeling for a lot of people, in my opinion, and it's a way to outplay the enemy, which we don't have right now because of the fact we see the capture zones. Project 7U, the MTB Series 1, a bug related to the launching of torpedoes when shooting with the main caliber weaponry has been fixed. Well, that's good. That sounds a very odd bug, but it's fixed. The F4C radar will now, in a stable fashion, acquire targets at short ranges. Switching between boresight mode and search mode is now possible with the command change radar mode. So you can change radars. Obviously, this is more options for the individual player, which is always good. The RE2005 Series 0, additional camouflage has been added. The camouflage is incredibly similar to the actual camouflage that we have. I will be doing a review on the Radeon in the next few days. The next server update we're looking at is on the 20th, and this is some mission changes and flight model stuff. So the first one is, according to numerous requests from our forum, Helicopter Enduring Confrontation Mission Afghanistan has been reworked. It is smaller now. If earlier the battles were 7x7 cells on the map, now it has been reduced to 5x5 cells. Based on the testing results of the modified mission, we will decide whether to rework the remaining helicopter missions in a smaller way or return to the older size to the Afghanistan mission. So they're making helicopter battles even smaller. I don't know whether this is for a player-based thing or if it's just for an overall balance thing. The problem with helicopters, which will be the same problem that always exists, is the fact that the top-tier helicopters absolutely smash the other helicopters that are in the game. And now you've put in a top-tier helicopter as a premium, which is French, and you've also put in another top-tier helicopter, the Mi-24 for the Germans, which is also pretty good. And as we'll see in a little bit, I believe the German helicopter is also getting a buff, the Eurocopter Tiger. And the reason, the grinding to top tier in helicopters is just a pain if you don't have a premium. And even now, with a lot of the premiums, when you compare them to the AH-1Z, the Mi-35M, you've got, stuff like the Eurocopter, they struggle, apart from stuff like the G-Lynx or apart from stuff like the French premium Eurocopter, because you have access, to that wonderful loadouts, the ATGMs, and of course the air-to-air missiles. So overall, you can change the game mode as much as you want, but at the end of the day, those top-tier vehicles are so much better than the mid-tier and low-tier helicopters that they don't stand a chance. And grinding through them, as a person who doesn't want to GE them, or as a person who doesn't want to buy a premium, is nigh on impossible without smashing your head against a wall. The CR-32, a bug resulting to the incorrect alignment of the aircraft, which leads to the incorrect pitch control when using control type full, has been fixed. The rudder operation at low speeds has been clarified. The damping at the course has been increased. Contact with the ground point of the fuselage has been recalculated. By prolonged braking, there is now the possibility of nosing over. Critical angles and lifting force reducing throughout the entire speed range according to wing blowing has been implemented. The dependence of the engine cooling on speed has been configured. The radiator flaps on the automatic control mode supports now the temperature on the normal operating mode better, and then engine altitude and max aircraft altitude have been refined. Inertia of the propeller group has been specified. Carburetor behavior on the flight model with low or negative overload has been improved, and the amount of fuel in the second wing-mounted fuel tank has been reduced. So somebody has gone to town on the FM for the CR-32, the little biplane that Italy has, and it just shows how much of an attention to detail you can have if you just look for it when it comes to Gaijin and War Thunder. So yeah, it's nice to see. Hopefully it is fully fixed. Hopefully it does make sense now, but that's a lot of changes. So that's a lot of stuff to get right and also a lot of stuff to get wrong. So we're going to have to see over the next week how it performs. The MiG-19, all modifications, a bug in the operation of the brake parachute leading to its insufficient efficiency on the run has been fixed. I hope that means runway. I love that is a wonderful phrase, may I just say. Insufficient efficiency is wonderful to say. I love that. Maybe efficiency is insufficient is another way to put it. So, oh god, that's great. Anyway, that's, you know, if that's fixed the brake parachute for the MiG-19, of course that's a positive. The range of speeds on which the visual Prandtl I'll struggle with this one. I'm just going to say Pranglar, because screw it. Effect appears has been reduced. Now the effect occurs in the range between 0.99 and 1.01 m. So they've just reduced basically the cloud effect that you see around the aircraft, making it look a little bit more realistic. On 1.91.0.87, we have a small changelog, which came out on the 24th, and this was saving and unloading methods of audio assets have been optimized. This will increase the stability of playback of the game sounds. Overall, I have seen a lot of improvements with the audio. There is a lot less clipping between audio pieces, but as I said, the sounds themselves sound very similar, at least in ground forces. In air forces, sounds pucker, sounds absolutely wonderful. A bug occurring in naval battles where the amount of torpedoes a player's vehicle had would not be shown correctly due to the relevant counter not working has been fixed. Well, that's nice. More information is power, so lovely to see it. A bug which made it impossible to use a ship's backup for a vehicle on which all torpedoes had been previously used has been fixed. That is an odd bug, but it seems like with this torpedo change, with the fact that with the new torpedo system, where they've made it so you don't have to load them, or you know, you do have to load them depending on if you want to take them or not, seems to be causing a lot of bugs with other systems, so that's a bit of a problem. A bug where, in very rare cases, the game client would crash when viewing server replays has been fixed. I fell victim to that, so I'm very glad that got fixed. And then the last piece, on the 26th of September 2019, 1.91.0.96, we have a bunch of changes which mainly affect top tier, but also affect some other things. So the first one, a bug where rockets were not reloaded on ATGM carriers has been fixed. Obviously, massive positive. You don't want to get to a cap zone and the ATGMs are just not coming back. A bug where the smoke grenades were not being reloaded has also been fixed. Now, this was a problem that was definitely affecting some individuals. We were talking about it on the Discord yesterday, so I'm glad that that has been fixed. The probability of night battles has been increased in random ground battles in AB and RB for vehicles of rank 9.0 and higher. So they did say they were going to do this. A lot of people were perplexed that the updates didn't drop with this increase of probability of night battles. But if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense, right? It makes a lot of sense that you want to give people a little bit of a period of time to be able to grind out their night vision modifications, if you know, to be able to use them in these night battles. Now, they don't say what the probability is, and so far early reports are showing that the probability is still not high, but it is nice that they are adding in some different variations. I'm still worried about the fact that, you know, it is once again another mechanic which puts a massive difference between a non-spaded vehicle and a spaded vehicle, and it also creates a massive difference between a vehicle that does have night vision and a vehicle that does not. We're also seeing it with thermals as well, which I see an extension of this new system. Hopefully we see some way to readdress this balance. I definitely think, especially with thermals, that could easily become a mechanic which would see a lot of BR changes because of it, because of how effective it is. The next one, the sound playback logic for naval guns has been optimized, so hopefully they sound a bit better. The composition for sound assets in games on naval vehicles has been optimized, once again the same thing. The volume of the sound mix in the game has been adjusted to the ASWG, Sony Audio Standards Working Group Standard. Okay, so that, I'm guessing, gets them out of legal stuff. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Changes to bulk savings of Golden Eagles is now implemented. So we talked about these the other week, or last week, I suppose it was. And for me personally, as I said in the video, I don't like when options are reduced from players, so therefore I disagree with this change. But if these are, the change itself is not that big, if we're quite honest, but at the same time, it is never nice to see options get taken away, unless there is a specific reason for it. When they did this to the Russian side of things, they were told that these were the sets which people hardly bought, which, you know, is fair enough, but I don't understand why that would mean taking them out, unless it was some form of sales tax issue. Now, we'll have to see if anything like that is clarified in the future. Then we have some server updates as well. The F4C, a preset with 4 AIM-9Es mounted on wing pylons with the SUU-23A container on the central pylon, has been added. So there you go. You got your gun, you got your missiles, you can go full-on Daka with the Phantom II and annihilate the MiG-21s and mainly MiG-19s which are flying about. I still think the way to play the Phantom II is just a bomb with it, especially as we just saw with the bomber repair cost update. It's actually going to go down in repair costs because of the change. So for me, when I look at the Phantom II, I just see a machine which is incredibly good at bombing, which can end the game, you know, within 5 minutes if you've got a 4-stack or maybe a 5-stack of them. And it's just very odd to see it, how people want to use it to dogfight. I mean, yeah, okay. Maybe you want to have fun in a PvP sense. Maybe that's why. But if you just want to win, there are just better ways of doing it right now. And hopefully, because of the Phantom and some other factors as well, we get a historic change to realistic top-tier battles when it comes to the objectives and stuff which are around. And maybe the Phantom is a tipping point for that, just to show that adding these vehicles in the game which have insane payloads is not going to be very conducive to fun and interesting gameplay. The EC665 Tiger UHT, a preset with 8 PARs, 3 LRs, and 4 AIM-92 Stingers has been added. So do you remember when I was talking about how those top-tier helicopters are so much better than their lower-tier counterparts? Well, let's just add another preset to the German Tiger, which makes it even better than the ones below it. Now you have 2 groups. You've got the H1Z, the Mi-35M. You can throw in the G-Lynx if you want, but it's not on par with these. Then you've got this thing, the Tiger. Then you've got the 2 Eurocopters from France, which are all like top-tier meta helicopters. And then you got everyone else who has nowhere near the capabilities of these. When is somebody else going to talk about this problem? Like, when does this become a problem? Because we've had the top-tier premium helicopter now, the Eurocopter from the French. Now surely we can see everything else, right? Can we all see this? How this is a problem, how you can just buy yourself a top tier vehicle, and on top of this, have one of the best loadouts in the game. On top of this as well, having such a disparity between the top of helicopters and even the mid-tier helicopters. Think about this, right? A lot of people talk about 10-0ing ground, how it's not fun being in a 9-0 or a 9-3 and getting up-tiered into 10-0. This is way more egregious than that. This is incredibly more egregious. This would be if you had a cardboard gun on the XM1 and you were getting, put into stuff like Leopard 2A5s. It is that bad of a scenario. So hopefully something is done. I don't even know what you do unless you want to put a wall between these insanely good helicopters and everything else, or you just keep throwing in top tier premiums because nobody wants to grind through the trees. Then you've got the Mi-24BP and Mi-35M. The number of flares has been changed from 128 to 196, so they get a few more flares, which will hopefully be a bit useful against some of the missiles that are coming in. We're going to have to see, if I'm quite honest, if they are. And then we have the G91YS, which has the separate firing of offensive weaponry has been changed to the larger caliber. I have no idea what that means. The separate firing offensive weaponry 4 has been changed to the larger caliber. Unless it's talking about what button it's connected to, or if it's talking about the guns don't fire at the same time and instead fire alternative from each other. Maybe that's what that's talking about. But that just seems a little bit odd to me. Anyway, overall, very good, most of all, very good bug fixes and changes to the game. I still, as I said, it's going to be interesting when it comes to top tier helicopters. It's going to be interesting when it comes to top tier in general. When it comes to aircraft, I see a lot of people complaining, but we'll have to see if changes come soon. Because once people really figure out how to play these machines, especially the Phantom 2, is going to become incredibly stale incredibly quickly. And I suppose the way to solve it is just to get them to face each other, right? Which is what we see here. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, John Ryman, Joseph Anders, Martinez, Mopar 1969, Moxie, Super Cacti, Uyans Terry, and Elove Goats, and of course Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.